Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be discussing the third episode of To Your Eternity. Last episode we got introduced to the adorable little girl March and her unfortunate circumstances. However, she's able to escape her fate with a little help from her sister, and in doing so ends up meeting up with the entity, and I guess becoming sort of a mother figure to him, if you could say that. Now, seeing as this show does seem to be episodic, I'm interested in how they're going to wrap up this story arc, because right now the entity is kind of in no shape to really help March out. He can't really even keep himself alive, let alone protect her. Now, I'm wondering if maybe in the face of some threats or some danger, the entity is going to be able to channel the, wolf instincts that it had in its previous form. I still am not exactly sure because last episode we left off with March already feeling guilty about leaving her fate to someone else in her village. Who knows, maybe she'll be able to show everyone in the village the entity and the strange ability that he has to regenerate. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what's going to happen. Now, unfortunately, you may have noticed that the reaction video is no longer uploaded on YouTube. Unfortunately, I did get a copyright strike, so we're gonna have to upload the reactions on streamable.com. Again, you guys won't get any ads or pop-ups. It's completely safe to view it there, and I'll give you guys a moment in the video to click on the first link in the description below, which will take you to the reaction video. So without waiting any longer, let's get into the episode. Okay guys, that was a really satisfying episode we got there. I wasn't sure how they were going to go about resolving this whole Oniguna-sama little mini arc. Wow, what a way to go. To be honest, I didn't think they were going to wrap it up so quickly, but I'm glad they did because now we get to really keep pushing further and further, so the pace is just great. I thought that maybe the entity might channel the wolf in some way to protect March, but I never thought that he would be able to, just transform back to the wolf. And honestly, with how helpless the entity seemed to be last episode and even at the beginning of this episode, it was hard for me to see how he could really help in this situation, considering honestly how massive Oniguna-sama was. I couldn't believe how big he was. And he's covered in spines. This guy is like bigger than a T-Rex, literally. Like, I mean, not Godzilla or King Kong size, but like he's getting there. He's a big guy. I guess I was a little surprised that the entity was able to put up such a good fight and battle so fiercely just because of how, useless he was as a human. But I guess he had enough time to figure out how to be the wolf. It's probably a little bit easier, I guess. Much more instinct rather than intellect, maybe. But one thing we did get to see in the fight was every time that the entity would either get wounded or sink its teeth in deeper into Oniguna-sama and cause Oniguna-sama some sort of pain, we got these rippling shivers through the wolf's hide and his fur. And I guess that's signaling, the intake, the acceptance of new information and stimulus or stimuli into the entity, that there's some sort of transference between the entity and Oniguna-sama. And that happens, before I thought it was touch. And I guess part of it's touch, but, it might just be touch combined with a very strong emotional impact being imparted onto the entity through the contacts. So Oniguna-sama was in a lot of pain, let's say, and that was strong enough to impart some strong stimulation, which we got in the visual form of those shivers through the wolf. It's going to be interesting to see how that, keeps shaping up in the future. And I guess the thing now is the entity is going to have eventually a lot of different forms it can take and a lot of different things it can transform into as it gains more knowledge and more information, more stimulation. The adventure is, ready to kick off, and we are ready to see how this entity is going to be able to develop and be able to take different forms and what that's going to do for everyone in the future. So lots of exciting things up ahead, I'm sure. And honestly, the episodes, I think they just keep getting better and better. And, the pacing is right on point. They slow down for those emotional cues. They have tons of character development, tons of expression that you get to see, especially in March, or rambunctious, dramatic. The typical little kid who is much older or tries to act much older than she is. And back when they were taking March away from the village, and she couldn't even, well, Parona couldn't even look at her sister, she was so upset. Just little things like that. It's really nice to see, because you really get behind, you really feel for these characters, one, and two, you really, are rooting for them. You really want to see them keep going and succeed. That is one of the most essential parts of any story, is getting the audience to really be connected and invested in the characters that you're trying to develop and show. And right now, it's looking great, that's for sure. Going back to the first episode too, that boy, oh my, so many heart-touching expressions, so much hope, so much, despite the despair, despite the lost cause. That scene where he's hugging, that scene where he's apologizing to the entity, the wolf, because he got upset that he wasn't talking back. How could he talk back? Just so touching. We also got March mentioning, and this is something that I kind of feel like is foreshadowing, but I could totally be wrong. It could just totally be something else. But March mentions the legendary Doki people when she was considering, where the entity might have come from. And my hunch is that it might have to do with some sort of legend of the people or the society that, the narrator or the person in the robes that we get in the OP and even the ED, who's holding the orb and who may have cast it onto the earth, some sort of higher being. We'll see where that goes. Right now, it's just a hunch, a little bit of foreshadowing. Maybe it'll be brought up later, maybe it won't, who knows. That was just something I just thought was interesting. I think that's going to do it for this episode. I am absolutely loving this series so far, and I'd love to hear back from you guys. If you guys have any comments or suggestions, just let me know, because I look at all of them. But other than that, I'm excited for next week's episode 4. Let's see where they're headed. Let's see what they get into, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.